den assistent.
Ja.
Men det hade ju blivit, jag vet inte om för tid till det, men när på fredag så flyttar jag iväg på den från
Yeah, I think we're just going to continue. I'm going to talk about how we can simplify our need for social media by using just plain text files. My name is Søren Peter and I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark. And I'm a librarian in my day job. I also do live visuals and live coding. With this project that I'm going to tell you about, someone called me digital activist, or maybe also an activist, so maybe I should start calling myself that. I also do a lot of events and community organizing, so with my artistic projects there's like a lot of building, like making events for people to attend to either workshops or performances performing with live visuals or live coding. So I'm gonna explore this tool, this technology or protocol, how it's been evolving and how I've been taking part in it and what direction I want to have it going in, and hopefully more people will start using it and ditching the big tech social medias. My motivation is that like a lot of frustration with the so-called intensification of social medias. Like you get a lot of stuff that you didn't ask for, you didn't sign up, you didn't subscribe for a lot of content you presented for on Instagram and Facebook. TikTok I'm not even using, and X is the whole other thing. And the core of it is like you're not in control of what you're taking in your digital diet. You're not. You can curate really because there's some commercial interests, because they want to keep you engaged and show you advertisements because that's how they make money. And to avoid having to depend on that, we need to build our own infrastructure, and this is an approach to do that as simply as possible. So some principles that I found and I'm gonna kind of be coming back to is like you need to own your own data, you need to own the infrastructure where your data lives. In some way you need to pay for that, or you need to share payment in it. I want to say that you should make protocols, not platforms. You should make languages that you can communicate with, that programs, software can communicate with, and not saying there's a platform where everyone's supposed to be, because that's centralizing it, and then there's all these risks of things being incentivized, because at some point there's going to be a capital interest to change it into something that's more profitable. And decentralization begins with yourself. These are links to different resources. There's a really good talk by Aaron Balcom that you can watch at some point. And then the Unix philosophy of one thing well. We've already got a lot of technologies that works really well, but just fixing the parts that are really broken and not trying to reinvent everything from scratch. And the idea about modularity, that you have different components you can put together in the way that fits you, and you don't have to take the whole package on nothing. With the risk of this coming through, I don't know if you know this cartoon by XYCK, that there's 14 competing standards, and that's ridiculous, so let's make a new one that's going to solve all the problems. Then you have 15 competing standards. So yeah, so that's might be something that happens, but yeah. But yeah, I don't see there's like other ways to do this than like jumping into this. So I'm gonna go through shortly some of the alternatives. Some of you probably know some of them, maybe not all of them, and mostly what I dislike about them, why I choose not to engage with these ones, but something else that I'm gonna get to. Yeah, so yeah, it's not gonna be super deep, it's just gonna be, this is what it has going for it and what it doesn't have going for it, and what I'm trying to make. So Mastodon is one of the big ones that like alternatives. It's run on something called ActivityPub, which is backed by the W3C, which is the consortium like working with all the internet standards. So that's a really good thing that it has the support. It's not in a commercial context, but it's very complex to set up and self-host if you want all the features, and it's very locked down in the way it looks. It's hard to customize. Also, it has direct messaging of some sort, but it's not really private. Everything, as I know, is in the clear text, so it has an illusion of having a private chat, but there isn't. And then there's Blue Sky, which has been taken off a lot the last couple of weeks, or last week, at least in the feeds that I follow. It has its own new protocol called AT Proto. It claims itself to be decentralized, but right now there's only the company developing it that runs servers because it's too heavy. You need like 20 gigabytes to set up the main server thing, and that's not very lightweight. And it's a for-profit company running it, and it's backed by venture capitalists. So at some point they want to make money, even though they claim to be the good guys right now, but so did Google 15, 20 years ago. But it has like one cool thing that like your handle is like your nickname, like you see at someone, and then you can just use your own domain. So it has like that kind of thing, thinking about how you can use the DNS protocol as a lookup. So that's a really cool thing. I think we could like extrapolate and use somewhere else. Then there's something called Shuttlebot, which is not, I don't know if anyone ever heard about that or used that. It looks really cute and promising. It's peer-to-peer, so there is no servers, everything is running on your device. But that also locks that device to being your ID. You can't have access an account that you have on your phone from your laptop, and there needs to be someone online following you, having your data. It's like kind of like torrents in a way how it's distributed its data. So if you're not online with your device, you can't be found. It's a hint only. It's like some crypto verification, so you can't delete stuff. The only way you can delete stuff is by being forgotten by everyone, and then it will disappear from the network because no one follows you and no one stores your data. And that also makes it hard to discover you because you can't really be looked up. There's no, unless someone follows you. But it has a really lot of interesting things going for it. Just never clicked with me. Then there's some older technologies that kind of does a lot of what you need and kind of birth how social media works today. Is the RSS feeds. It's a way you just subscribe to a website and then you have an application on your device or a web application that composes a feed of all the things you follow. You can still do that, but there's like no replies. There's no way of getting back to people unless you write them an email, so there's no public discussion. And it's the same with newsletters, which is also taken off a lot because it kind of closes off the whole influx of things you didn't ask for. So a lot of people making newsletters, a lot of making blogs because it's like more dedicated to one point. But again, there's no shared discussion, which I think is valid or valuable. And there's the indie web movement, and does anyone know about that? Yeah. So yeah, I think there's got a lot of things going for it. That your ID is your domain. So your domain is like I would be dark.dk if someone tries to communicate with me. And then it goes this concept of POSL. Yeah, publish on your own site and syndicate elsewhere. So you have like one core where you put all your content to begin with, and then you link that, or you copy that into other platforms. And that's at least transitional way of doing it, because this is not going to change tomorrow. This is a long stretch. But it's a good way of saying this is me owning everything that I put on the internet by putting it on my own server to begin with, and then I'm gonna make copies out to all the different platforms that I want to still use to get people's attention. Yeah, but it's I think that kind of creeps me out about how it works, because all the metadata is mixed into the HTML, so it's like everything is to look at, to understand what's going on a website with IndieWeb. You need to look at the whole HTML and find tags and pull them out. And people, if you don't do that precisely, things break. So it's just very complicated, and maybe trying to do too many things of the design patterns you see from social media, not really thinking critically about, do we need all of these features for what we actually want to spend our time with and communicate about. So this leads me to some statements that I try to, that I'm trying to fulfill with these tools. It needs to be easy to publish. It's not really in the IndieWeb, because you need to make your website and make sure it doesn't break and that it works with other sites. It needs to be able to consume, so everyone should be able to access the information, so you don't need to have an account to see stuff. It should be easy to reply to stuff, so you can have a conversation even with people you don't know, you don't follow yet. And it should be cheap and easy to post on your own or in a smaller group or bigger group, so you share the hosting expenses and maintenance. Yeah. And yeah, some of these, like the conversation part, is like what makes the internet social compared to just having content served to you with RSS or newsletters. So, like during the uprise of the pandemic in 2020, I went looking into all of these things, and I found this thing called Tweetex. So I wanna, and it doesn't do everything. It just do microblogging in a text file, and all the other features that you might want, like email or Signal or chats. There's like other tools that does that really well. So instead of cramming everything into one tool that does everything, like a lot of platforms does, it's like, no, just focus on this thing, which is kind of broken and missing, and then adding that piece to the puzzle. Tweetex is a combination of word Twitter and text, and it started in 2016, and it kind of looks like this. It's a text file that you put on a server, and that's where all your content is, or at least all the pointers to your content. And the syntax is kind of like this. Every line is a post, and then you have a timestamp in the beginning, And then you can make mentions and tags. That's at least what was in the original spec. And then there's some tools that parses that and makes that interactive or presents that in a UI way. But that's the core of the format. Nothing more than this. And that means that you can make a client by just using a notepad or a text editor. You can just use any text editor to edit the file. It helps with using like Bash or shell scripting to just get the date right, to get the format and time zoning and this kind of thing. But that's pretty much it. So it's the timestamp and a tab sign and then your message. And end of line means new message. So this command here, creates this message, and that's kind of all you need to get started. Also makes it possible to build other tools very easily, because you don't need a lot of complexity or big frameworks or libraries to do these things. This is going to be interesting. Yeah. So this is the first client that was made by a person called Bucket. And it's a command line program. So he just sees who's following, and then he adds a new following to his feed, his timeline, and then he makes a post. And then he looks at his timeline, and that's kind of the core of what you need. Some people like to use interfaces like this, but I want to have it more graphical and also more approachable by more people. And that's why in around, I'm not completely sure when we started the project. It was rebranded to Yarn Social because 3-6 is kind of a clumsy word, very hackerish. It was also presented as microblogging for hackers. But it's like, it puts some people off. That is like, how do you even pronounce this thing? It looks very techy, but trying to make it more friendly. And yarn is British slang, Australian slang for having a conversation, having a chat. But it also hints to some of the features that was added, is threading, so that you can have conversations going on in a thread. And that's like, I think it's a metaphor for a lot of things, like a thread in conversations or in argumentation, the red thread and so. And it's very friendly, like yarn is very cuddly and soft and can be colorful, so that's why they picked this one. So the extensions was that to find a way to make replies to point to old message within it, so you can have like replies to it, and that you can make multi-line posts by using some special characters, and you can use Markdown for adding images or links or bold text and so forth to make it more varied, so you can be more expressive. This core program is written in Go, and I was running it for a year or so, but the only users I got on my server was mostly spam. So I closed it for registration, and then I just closed it down because it was just not really what I wanted in the long run. So so how it works is that you have some servers. You have a server that has the text file that people can download, and you need a client for that, or you can just open the text file and read it. But you can have a client that composes these things together. And if you have a combined server and client in one web application, you call it a pod. Just a bit of terminology. I'm not completely sure it's better, but I've been working on this for some years, so I believe it is. It's decentralized, similar to email, that everyone can follow everyone. potentially, if you have the right address. But compared to email, it's in the public, and also you with the clients that exist right now, you only see posts from people you follow, so there's no suggesting anything. It's very, very simple. But also it's a very small network. It's like 50 or 100 people that we know of that uses this. So there isn't a lot of spam in that way. Yeah, and I will kind of hinted to this, that it gives you a freedom to build very simple tools, and that's what I did, and I called it Timeline, and it's written in PHP, so it can be easily deployed to a lot of cheap web hosting, and you don't need to log into a command prompt SSH to change or run it or make sure it's run. It's run when someone accesses the server, and it's a lot of people bash PHP, but it's just everywhere and it's cheap, and it's not meant to be big, and it might be that one day, but it's then you are in control and it's easy to customize. So this is how it looks right now, at least. So yeah, you have a free posting and a message, and then I implemented some hashtag extraction, so you can filter on all previous stuff. And this is like a conversation view where you see this is replies to this one. And then I made a gallery feature because I want to showcase my art. So it just looks for all the posts with images and takes them and put them in a grid. But all of this can be somewhat easily customized in the code if you want it to look something different. And this is how my own website looks with Timeline. So it's the same content, just skinned with a little bit of CSS to align with my website, so it seamlessly becomes part of that. And yeah, another screenshot. Yeah. And then there's some other tools around it. They also build a search engine, so you can search in these messages and search for the specific kind of metadata. You can search for mentions of a person, and it's very rough still, and yeah, it needs some more development maybe. And then there's something called WebFinger, which is a way to look up people on something that looks like an email but doesn't have to be. And Mastodon and ActivityPub often use it also. So instead of having a URL to a text file, you can just have a nick, add server name, and then you can look that up. But it requires an extra level that you make this endpoint on your server, so this is a feature. And then, because you only see posts from people you follow, then it's difficult to explore if someone found you and starting to message you or talk about you with a mention. So I've been working on a tool for implementing web mentions, which come from the indie web world also, for tweettext, and starting to see that it starts to work. So you actually have a way of being notified when someone posts about you that you don't follow, and yeah. And then my dreams for the future is that this format or something very similar to it can be part of any website where you need some kind of social feature, and it can replace the links to Instagram, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, whatever. So you don't depend on these big platforms to have these this features that is what they provide, and you can have it yourself, but you should be able to. And there's some debates on how the technicalities of the format of the replies and how we should formalize some things, and yeah, and that's still very much ongoing, and so it's not completely set and finished, but it's evolving. And yeah, the features I wanted to see implemented was the one in the previous slide. And that's kind of what I had in mind now. And I would really like to open discussions about these things, what you see in this, and what it sparks of ideas and issues you see, whatever. Yeah. Thank you.
Now we are passing to the online presentation. So we have like 5 minutes of a pause. Okay.
Yeah. No questions? Den kaster man lidt.